Do you like spiders? No. Arachnophobic? Yeah. No. What if spiders of all kinds were the size of a hippo or even bus? Are you arachnophobic now? Me too. Many diverse and expansive threats have scuttled, oozed, and slammed into the scenarios we have deemed unsurvivable. Infections, biomasses, and mind-altering apocalyptic enemies that would put us up on a silver platter for consumption or destruction. But sometimes the antagonist attempting to end you doesn't have to be overly complex. Sometimes just the idea of a big-ass spider is enough to give you a case of the heebie-jeebies. So what would happen if a colony of spiders made some gains at the genetic gym to outclass man and attain a new spot atop the food chain? Let's find out. Today, we are telling you why you wouldn't survive Eight-Legged Freaks' spider apocalypse. Out westward in the good old state of Arizona, a truck driver was moseying through an old prospector settlement by the name of Prosperity. The driver would find himself in a similar situation to BP Oil when he went to avoid hitting a rabbit and ended up accidentally knocking a barrel of toxic waste into a local water supply.
We are deeply sorry. We're sorry. Sorry. I'm deeply sorry.
A spider farmer by the name of Joshua would soon come by the pond and unknowingly procure some crickets that drank from this tainted source. Feeding the polluted insects to his arachnids, the chemicals within the crickets had slowly started to change characteristics of the once tame arachnids, slowly changing everything about them from their physiology to them being way more intelligent and coordinated amongst their eight-legged masses. This will also be followed by an insatiable hunger to devour prey. A tarantula named Tank eventually escaped its containment to stealthily bite Joshua. Normally, their bite would equate to nothing more than a bee sting, but with these mutations, did it cause Joshua to begin seizing up, to keel over, and die in the span of less than 20 seconds, all while it and 200 other spiders in the colony were still normal size. Joshua had led a rather introverted life, and upon death, no one attempted to contact him for nearly a week while his body served as a feeding ground for the spider horde. The consumption and constant mutagenic state of their anatomy allowed them to grow to the size of about cats and then eventually horses. Using the local mineshaft system that ran various tunnels underneath the local township, did the spider horde begin to prey upon local pets, wildlife, and even livestock to either feed upon or to attack and retrieve to serve before their queen spider, burrowing below homes, businesses, and other high population areas to get the job done. Unwary people would find themselves quickly overwhelmed and either swiftly devoured or weaved into webs. Since the nature of the film was one of campy horror comedy, a resolution to the threat had to be simple and easily quellable, blowing up the entire spider horde in one fell swoop along with the queen in the mine shafts of the town of Prosperity. But what would it realistically turn into if the spiders didn't immediately attack people in goofy ways, with the spiders deeming humanity too much of a threat in their first few weeks or even months? What if instead the spider horde bided their time and allowed their mutagenic capabilities to fully flourish? Let's just say it's not a pretty picture. If left unchecked, their growth would have no limit. They were destroyed by the end of Eight-Legged Freaks, where they were only a few weeks into their outbreak. Given more bided time, it's possible they could even grow to the size of elephants or even whales, standing as towering figures above us, ready to eat us like flies in their web. The spider's mutations could become contagious and spread amongst other arachnids across the world, or even just about any carnivorous insects that will be prone to the mutations of these toxic chemicals. Considering it was originally spread through an open water source and carried via crickets, the spiders either biting and infecting others or laying their eggs in areas near water or food supplies could lead the eight-legged mutagens to spread. The mutations spreading would mean anything infected could could grow over 100 times their original size, becoming resistant to many types of damage and heightening their intelligence. Not only that, but coordinating with the spider horde to work as an effective hierarchy and unit to systematically hunt down all valid prey they can find and or discern. All arachnids within the colony of 200 arthropods had various subspecies of spiders to draw from and use in its...
I call this an arach attack. You get it?
It's good.
The spider horde being controlled and directed by hierarchical female queens looking to obey her every whim as well as feed her so she may produce more. All of these units under the guise of this mutagen working together in a veritable pack mentality to serve the purposes of feeding its own colony no matter the cost. It is possible that these spiders could grow enough intellect to learn to infect areas ripe with spiders, insects, and more, leading to them not only seeking to feed their queens in order to strengthen their numbers, but also to indoctrinate smaller creatures into their ranks, eventually creating more giant bugs. Even though spiders aren't bugs, but you get the drift. The spider mutations would be wildly expansive, with each new arthropod, insect, and arachnid under its wing, or I guess under its massive dump truck of an abdomen. It would be effectively used in ways to overwhelm, trap, and devour the masses, even for the OG spiders from the original Prosperity colony. Now, before discussing the mutation's capabilities outside the colony, what about those that attacked the small mining town and what they are adapted to in their new walks of life? Due to the nature of the strengthened and mutated venom of the tarantula bite, it is very safe to say even a slight prick from any unit of these gargantuan arthropods would be instantly lethal, or, in the very least, extremely paralytic or debilitatingly painful. All transformed spiders will retain this ability, as well as having a knack for ripping you to pieces or turning you into a liquid buffet. Each one will have moderate to extreme strength, and even be capable of adapting to elements like fire and more, while also being extremely agile. But more importantly, the spiders will use their diverse ranks as means of scouting, tanking, and more, basically like an army. The most numerate and violent of the arachnids being the jumping spiders. Their powerful jumps are capable of closing great distances easily, able to catch up to dirt bikes that can average maximum speeds of up to nearly 100 miles per hour and still take down its drivers. With further mutations over the span of a few more weeks, they could easily make even our fastest land vehicles seem slow by comparison. This baseline infantry would constantly be out in the front lines, searching for prey by the countless multitudes to paralyze and or kill. Their numbers alone would dwarf most of what we could throw at them. Full-on offense against their nests will be mandatory to nip the problem in the bud. However, covertly placed ambushes will be present. Burrowing into the ground, trapdoor spiders can camouflage in dirt, grass, and sand, making pitfalls, holes, and eventually digging tunnels to stealthily leap at and or ensnare prey to drag them underground for consumption, murder, or binding. Thousands of hidden quagmires of these trapdoor spiders could lie in wait for anyone that dares approach their nesting grounds, or even setting up shop in high-volume areas for cattle and other large animals for them to feast upon and use to grow. With more traps leads to more weaker and fragile surfaces, making pitfalls, leaving all land resistance difficult to traverse, never knowing when a trapdoor spider could pole vault from the ground to gouge you out and dismember you in the blink of an eye. Now, the most commonplace variants and basis for the hierarchical foundation of the spider mutations focus on a queen and a unified effort are the orb weaver spiders, surprising victims by sneaking into places and instantly spinning webs around them to cocoon and trap them. A horde of these basically spitter kidnappers would easily envelop tons of people in settlements quickly if not held off, possibly invading within the night through their makeshift tunnels and through open entrances into compounds made by themselves or by their brethren to capture sleeping or unweary survivors. When left alone, even real-world orb weavers can cause a nest of webs. Back in 2009, a Baltimore wastewater treatment plant plant housed over 100 million orb weaver spiders, where they had crafted a web system spanning 4 acres inside. It was estimated that for every cubic meter inside the plant, there was about 35,000 spiders, a testament to how much they could create via nests and traps and their exponential reproduction methods. Orb weaver spiders are able to produce up to 1,000 eggs at a time, and their young are able to mature in months. The size difference could have you saying that the egg production and rate of maturity might actually lessen, but the mutation spurred by the toxic waste could easily expedite this process, so the spiders could create tens of thousands or even up to 1 million eggs with a faster rate of maturing, where even the young could hit reproductive maturity within just days or a few weeks. If a treatment plant could hold over 3,000 spiders every few feet, imagine how an entire country could be every kilometer or mile. Creating webbing across high population areas where even making the slightest vibration or cutting through could cause a horde of thousands of these huge spiders to be alerted to your presence, instantly swarming you to cocoon your entire body. Yes, you could fight back, possibly with large munitions and fire, but much like the arachnids of Starship Troopers, they'll have a veritable hive mind on top of sheer numbers that are basically unemotional and only serve the needs of its matriarch. The horde will not be concerned with self-preservation, throwing relentless legions at you till ammo and infantry run dry, all while we try, in the very least, to prevent more of the webs and eggs being created and weaved across the lands, but to no avail. The production rate is just too fast. Once you are cocooned or stuck, it's basically a cruel game over. Anything caught within the spider horde's webbing will have spiders, specifically matriarchal spiders like the mutated female orb weaver Consuela, will have you meeting a terrifying and painful death. You will be stabbed by extremely long fangs so that you can be injected with corrosive digestive acids to liquefy the internal organs of its prey so that it can drink you up like a human guts puree. The queen will direct everything to feed her and her horde's mutative need to never stop eating, fueling the hellacious and unnatural growth of their forms. In the beginning of the 8-legged outbreak, or ELO for short, only small animals and livestock will start to go missing and be found either with their bodies webbed up and liquefied or having their limbs scattered about like leftovers. The more the spider horde consumes, the more it will grow, all refraining from interacting with humans until the time is right, considering us as higher on the food chain and something to be avoided for the time being underground dwellers residing in sewers, caves, tunnels, and more, just places that will be largely out of sight by many a man, laying eggs, polluting sources, and multiplying without falter. In the span of only 2 weeks, did these spiders go from regular-sized little arachnids to being dog-sized or even bus-sized? Depending on the species of spider it evolved from, will it depend on their total capabilities and uses with the matriarchy of the spider army. Tank and Consuela, the second in command and queen of the spiders respectively, were gigantic, and with higher numbers will come more queens, more variations, and again, higher birth rates and exponential growth, with exoskeletons and strength being enough to pierce through hardened materials, being able to resist fire, eventually gunfire, rip doors off cars, and knock vehicles over by ramming into them. Now, every once in a while, some people will come into the comment section saying they can survive. You might think you're some sort of badass that can hold their own and kick off spiders as stylishly as this. But you know what? You're just gonna end up like this if we are being realistic. And sure, spiders can easily be shot down, engulfed in flames, and... Ooh, he doesn't have the guts for that anymore. Splattered with enough effort and means. But with their mutative capabilities, even fire can be something they just adapt to. Spiders can't burn.
He'll adapt.
They'll adapt to burning. Inducting others of its family tree, like the brown recluse or black widow, could lead to even more lethal venom, turning flying insects like wasps, yellow jackets, and even bees into drones for the spiders to control and use as aerial combatants to enlarge and destroy something like fighter jets and reconnaissance drones, while also creating large hives, spurring subsets of queen mutant bugs that attack humanity by even more coordinated and dangerous swarming methods. Speaking of swarms, we're going to be seeing infestations of dog-sized or even car-sized locusts devouring entire ecosystems in the span of just a few days. Think, again, Peter Jackson's version of Skull Island and all the giant insects that wiped out most of the expedition team, and how resistant they were to damage and how easily they were able to consume people. But imagine that, but potentially reaching larger sizes and countrywide or even global numbers. Now, picture that, but now each of them is now working to serve a queen, instead of just working as thoughtless predators trying to fill their belly. Any and all insects, spiders, and creatures of similar stature could become gigantic, queen-simping killing machines on the fly. The only way of preventing an 8-legged freakpocalypse is by finding the spiders before they have expanded into other genetic territories, before they even reach larger sizes, and most importantly, before their numbers could be way too much to handle, and another thing, before they are able to pollute local water sources and possibly food sources so other insects are not mutated. All able-bodied people can and will take up arms and attempt to fight back. But ultimately, as stated before, it would be fruitless against such numbers per square mile or kilometer. Airstrikes, chemical attacks, and Mother Nature's great cleanser, fire, would be the only go-tos for wiping them out. But this would also require knowing exactly where this horde was growing and expanding underneath our feet. The growth of their intellect could ultimately determine if we even will adequately be able to stop them before it's too late. It's possible by the time they have their own version of Gears of War's Emergence Day that it would be too much to handle. That diversity of the arachnid army would be too much, as every offense and defense we have would be exhausted as their numbers continued to multiply, turning large portions of the planet into web-ridden messes, with all living things being sucked dry, with nothing left inside but bones and despair.
That's what she said!
It doesn't matter how advanced and developed our weapons and own numbers are when their reproduction and induction methods, on top of exponential growth and virile toxins, would simply outlast and cripple us as a species, as well as our means of food production, eventually killing off crucial species on the planet to where lands would become barren. Insects crucial to the means of some flora's well-being and continued existence, like bees, will now work for the sole purpose of attempting to feed a horde of beasts and a queen that never stops hungering, that can never get enough to eat. Enlarged locust swarms destroying forests, jungles, and all vegetation on the planet to weed out prey. All forms of animals we ourselves eat will be quickly eaten before we can even procure them for our own needs of farming, consumption, and survival. Even if you survive in the long term, say you found a compound where the spiders can't get to you whatsoever and you're able to hold your own, well, in the long term, the planet will eventually and inevitably become uninhabitable. Insatiable giant bugs that never stop hunting for food or stop eating will drain the planet of all of its resources, destroying all life from flora to fauna, polluting our water, poisoning the smallest life forms to become part of their army, and with less trees and plant life out there, thinning the very air that we breathe. Eventually, if the spiders don't devour you alive or liquefy your insides, if giant hornets don't impale you, if locusts don't gnaw the flesh off your bone, if ant colonies don't blot the land in a sea of ravenous beasts, if you aren't caught in a webbing and just serving to be a meal later on and you just sit there rotting to death, the planet itself will kill you off by breathing its last breath in unison with your own. The eight-legged freaks will have won, turning a campy comedy about giant spiders into a dystopian doomsday video for some weird-ass long-haired freak like me to discuss about 20 years later. That about wraps up this dive into arachnophobia incarnate. Was I thinking way too critically and jumping to conclusions about a campy-ass movie from 2002? What do you think they are capable of? Do you think humanity could squash these faux insects easily, no matter the size? Let me know down in the comments. Special thanks to my editor Chago, aka QuickFlix, and special thanks to you for watching, and another big one to my donators over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members. Your support means the world to me, and thanks for being on the video on this list here. Until next time, I'm Zach S, aka Wow Such Gaming. Stay happy, stay healthy, make a spider friend in your house and don't kill it. Maybe they'll let you live when they take over the world, and never forget to stay wow.